All right, we're live, guys. Welcome to the Flight Test Community Podcast, episode 16. Tonight we have the Air Bears, and we're going to talk about part 107 of the FAA new rules. And we have Scott Zimmerman
Hi,
and
guys.
a great friend from Flightfest, which is Irby Allen. Welcome, guys.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, folks?
And I'm here too. I'm Patrick. Hi.
And that's Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody
We're,
knows Patrick by now.
We're without Joel tonight. Joel is off at some sort of sporting event or something.
It's some soccer,
doing
one of those
whatever.
English things, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's weird.
them and the soccer.
Be
What is
careful because I believe that's football. So you got to.
Oh, that's right.
No,
it? That's football to them.
Football.
that's soccer. We play football here. Well, for whatever reason, guys, I apologize, but it looks like the Joel Cannon Wix site for our Flight Test Community Podcast is not working. I'm not sure why, and we're just going to go ahead on with the show anyway. So,
I have a live yellow box up in the right-hand corner of my screen. So
yeah, but
That's a good thing.
all right.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That means we're live on air, at least on YouTube, I believe. But to do the chat on our
live chat with people.
our live chat looks like it's not working. So I don't know what's going on there. So
We'll leave that for Joel to figure out.
I'm going to skip it. You know what? Tough luck.
Yep.
So anyway, first off, I think we should probably just see what's going on with everybody. Let's start with Irby. Irby, what have you been up to lately?
Just pretty much enjoying the summer. We've been, in terms of flying, been able to put together. I bought from Laser Toys their skimmer wing, so I put that together and been able to get that up. Flew it on a 2-cell, so I have yet to get it up on a 3-cell. I bought a 3-cell from Flight Test, and it came in about a week or so ago, so I got it charged up, so I'm interested to see what it does on a 3-cell. Maybe hopefully get it screaming a little bit. But we've been working on with my boys, working on finishing their FT mini arrows, and so yeah, we're nearly done with that. So my oldest son actually, he was bitten at the last Flight Fest, so he was bitten by the wing bug.
Yeah.
So we go over to Laser Toys, and of course they had a couple of their displays that had gotten slightly crushed or whatever, either in transport or whatever, and so they were selling them at a discount. Well, he bought one. The wing was a little crimped. It wasn't too bad, but they sold it to him and had the motor already, had the ESC. The only thing he needed was the receiver. It already had the servos, and he pretty much was up and running and was flying the thing and loved it. Then he bought a set of lights to put on it, and he was flying it at night. And so I said, well, let me see what this is about. So I bought a wing, and then I got home and put it together and flew it, and I'm like, yeah, now I see what this is about.
Wings are fun. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, a lot of fun.
The wings at Laser Toys they were like complete, right? Except for the receiver, they were like so big, like yay big or so. Maybe
Yeah, they
18
had
inches,
the
pretty
smaller
small.
ones, right? Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
those
I
were the
remember.
skimmer.
I almost bought one. I found out about him. Jen Bixler she was talking. She's like, Mikey was just over here. He was trying to get money out of me for something, and I gave him the money, and he bought this wing, and I'm like, and she told me the price, and then I said, I found Mike. I'm like, Mikey, where'd you get your wing? I said, you paid this much for it? He's like, yeah. So I went down, and I almost bought one, but I had specific things in mind. I didn't want to spend a lot of money while there, so
You went to the wrong place.
I adulted and I didn't buy one.
It's hard because when as I'm walking around and I'm seeing all those things, I have to check with my chief financial officer.
Exactly.
Meaning the missus, she's like, yeah, no, not that. Yeah, maybe we could do that. We can't do that. I'm like,
yeah. Now I know you had your 3 boys there, right?
yes, sir, I did.
Was your wife
this was
there with you as well?
Yes, she was, and this was our
Oh, see,
this
you
was
were
our
well
second year. Our
supervised.
second year as a yeah, I most certainly was. I most
Mistake
certainly,
number
and she
one.
would agree with you, Patrick. She would say the same thing. And this was our second year as a family, and I was surprised after the first year. So, I was worried because I knew for us guys that we would have a good time. Anything
Right.
RC, airplane, whatever, the boys and I would be fine. And I was just worried about, you know, would my wife be able to plug in? Would she enjoy herself? And last year, she immediately plugged in. She volunteered at the registration tent.
Oh
Met so
man,
many
wonderful.
people. And then we came. She said, "Okay, so when are we're doing it again next year, right?" I'm like, "There's nothing but a word. You said nothing but a
Wow.
word."
You're a lucky man.
And
You are a
so,
lucky
Exactly.
man.
and we're already talking about next year. And so, it just, I think Flight Fest has that effect on families,
It
and
does.
I'm just blessed. God has given me a wonderful wife, and
Does
she
she have a
actually.
sister?
She has three older sisters, but unfortunately they are married, and their
Okay.
husbands are great guys. But
Just my luck.
it's funny because there was a video posted by someone in the community of a quote unquote indestructible quad. So she decided to go ahead and order one for herself. And so she wants to learn how to fly quads. And so
Awesome.
I'm stoked about that. And so I said, well, as
That
soon as
is
you get it,
cool.
we'll get out in the yard and I'll teach you how to fly it. We'll have a good time.
Very cool.
So
Dude,
that's
that
what I've
is
been up to this summer.
awesome. Fantastic.
That's great, man. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm just
So,
shaking my head here because I'm like, that. No, that would never happen with me.
Yeah.
I can't get my wife or kids to do anything.
Yeah, my
RC related.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, my
Does it?
wife won't have anything to do with it either.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Mike tried
So,
too.
Scott, what about you, man?
I personally have had my nose buried in federal regulation manuals for the past probably 2 months.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and boy, let me tell you, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet that's just a joy.
So this weekend I took a break. I went on tour with my favorite band in the world, and I had a great time. And now it's back to work. I'm scheduled to take my 107 exam this coming Friday,
Oh,
and so I got a little more studying to do. But yeah, basically been playing a game of whack-a-mole with the FAA for the past year and a half is what I've been up to. So yeah, there's that. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's tough.
Yeah, I
It's
feel
tough.
for you, man. It's been pretty tough. I can't even imagine what you guys have been going through over there, and now they just continue to
I-
change things around even more.
Is there some sense of resolution at this point with 107, or is it still way up in the air?
Oh no. 107 is set in stone.
Okay.
Now that doesn't mean that they're going to be modifying it and changing it as time goes on. In fact, all the FAA guys we've talked to readily admit that uh, that these rules will evolve. Um,
Okay.
so the situation may not be ideal, but uh, they may change, and they're open to that. As much as I would like to sit here and bash the FAA, they've had a really tough job. That being said, they had 4 years to do this, and
Yeah.
they kind of drug their feet a little bit, and now they're trying to get it all done at once. But and as a result of that, in my opinion, I think they've made some mistakes. So
Okay.
we're gonna try and work with them and try and help them fix those mistakes.
Yeah, I think the problem is with anything and everything with technology, um, the pace where it moves. Probably 4 years, 6 years, 8 years ago, the idea of a quadcopter, hexcopter, whatever, is probably foreign to a lot of people. And then now you have places like Target and Walmart and Best Buy,
Oh
whatever.
no,
They've proliferated in such a way to where you can just grab one off the shelf with some kind of capability, any kind of capability. And so now, and I think the reason why we are where we are today is because you have a lot of people who aren't really in the hobby. So for a lot of us who are in the hobby or AMA members or member of some other kind of organization, we already know about safety, how we need to operate our craft, things of that nature. But Joe on the corner, who is not an AMA member, who probably hasn't done any kind of research, but looks at a quad because it's cool, goes and buys one and decides to fly it near a building or near an airport, whatever. And then so whether uh, these stories are few in number or whether they're great in number, they tend to get blown up. And so then the FAA says, oh, now we got to do something about it. So they come down heavy-handed on the entire hobby. And so the majority of us get hurt by the actions of a few who probably know nothing about the hobby other than being able to go into a store and buy what they consider a toy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, you're touching on the fact that the technology is outpacing their ability to create the laws. In fact, let's just hypothetically say that the FAA was on top of their game 4 years ago, and they came out with some really good rules. Well, 4 years ago, that's like, how much the technology has changed since then.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Yeah,
that they
exactly.
would have done would be obsolete. So
That's like 3 generations of flight controllers ago.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and he's right, because the technology has gotten to the point where it's so much easier to fly them, and that has pros and cons. From an Air Bears perspective, that means we may have more membership, we may have bigger coverage, we may be able to get to places where they need us. On the other hand, maybe that guy is not really ready to go out and help yet. He needs to practice more, and he needs to get the fundamentals of flight, down pat. So there's pros and cons to it, and yeah. So it's tough. It's tough. The technology changes incredibly fast.
Really, really fast.
Yeah. So
And it's, yeah.
I've looked over a couple of summaries of 107, and here's one thing I keep getting hung up on. It doesn't. Is there a provision for non-line of sight operations, like operations beyond line of sight?
No, not beyond line of sight. Everything in 107 is all within line of sight.
So this is supposed to regulate commercial operations, or am I incorrect?
You are incorrect. In fact, the word commercial does not appear anywhere in 107.
Okay.
Basically, what the FAA has done is that they have created 2 different types of flying. There is recreational, and then there is everything else.
So this is civil, non-commercial operation.
Correct. It is anything other than recreational or hobby flying. Anything other than that.
That's correct.
But
yeah, under the. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
Wouldn't that be commercial?
Not necessarily. Air Bears is not commercial. We don't get paid a cent, but we have to follow the new 107 rules.
According to the FAQs in terms of the Flying for Fun, when it talks about, and this can be found at www.faa.gov/UAS/FAQS. And they talk about the different options. In terms of option 1, flying in accordance with special rule for model aircraft, and this is under recreation. Under this rule, fly for hobby or recreation purposes only. Follow a community-based set of safety guidelines. And just recently, the FAA has acknowledged the AMA as a community-based organization, and that AMA's rules are fine. And as long as you're flying within AMA rules, you should be okay.
Yes. Let's specify that. Let me interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Specify that they are not saying you must be an AMA member.
Right.
You just have to follow the rules.
You just have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And it says that you have to fly within visual line of sight. So it doesn't make any provision for FPV or beyond line of sight. And I think where I'm still trying to get clarification is my understanding is, and Scott, you can tell me if I'm wrong, if you're flying FPV, that throws you into 107, does it not?
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And that's the
And
very, very sad part about this.
they still require a spotter under 107.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. To do FPV, you must have a spotter. The thing is that visual line of sight must be satisfied, either by the pilot in command or by his visual observer.
Right.
So the recreational hobby side of it, there are specific, not so much rules, but there are certain qualifications that must be satisfied, and they can be found in Section 101 of the Code of Federal Regulations, or the CFRs. And every one of those must be met, and one of them is visual line of sight. And since the FAA has determined that there's only two types of flight, be it recreation or anything else, if you cannot satisfy every one of those requirements under 101, then it's everything else. And so now, according to the FAA, anybody who flies FPV for recreation, it's not recreation.
So
It is
you
now
have to be
107.
licensed.
Yes, and you have to get the
Right.
license.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
and
Not
for
interesting. It sucks, is what it is.
It does, and again, I think that's not only the FAA and law in general lagging behind the technology, but maybe even, and I'll start jumping up and down on AMA again. I just don't think they're embracing or they're not lobbying enough for the FPV community. And I'm not sure, and I know for a fact that some of the leadership in the AMA is still not feel like they should represent the FPV community or the quote-unquote drone community.
You're absolutely right, Patrick. In fact, one of the guys who is currently running for the new presidency
president
of AMA,
is
Yeah.
way against it.
yes, he's like, I want to focus on our core membership. You know, the old timer warboard guys, and
Yep.
yeah. So
That's the dance with who you brought guy.
Well,
Right.
that's sad because I'm an AMA member, and all three of my boys, I got them signed up, and they all have their cards, and for me, I got a taste of FPV actually at last year's Flight Fest. I was sitting next to a guy. We were parked. That's when the flight line and everything was a little closer to the Fury's home. And we were sitting underneath one of their trees, and there was a gentleman, he and I think his grandparents were sitting next to us, and he was looking through his goggles. And I looked at him and said, "Hey, what you looking at?" He said, "Here, have a peek." And I got a chance to look through his fat sharks, and oh my goodness,
We're hooked.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so I think, though, what the AMA is doing, if that's the case, they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. Because if you just get a glimpse, whether you go to Joe Nall or whether you go up to Malvern to Flight Fest, whether you go to CEF, any of these places where you see younger people where they are involved and you see them getting involved in the hobby, they are gravitating to FPV. Why? Because it's new. It gives them the feeling of, hey, I'm at the controls of an aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
They literally are, but it really gives them a kind of a cockpit view. And it could be done so safely, and it's a lot of fun. And so you're cutting off a huge part of the community, and what they're going to find is, especially as the warbird crowd, as Scott has said, as the warbird crowd gets older, they'll find the younger crowd is going maybe to some other organization, or somebody is deciding, I'm going to start my own organization because AMA is not representing me. So I mean that's what they're going to end up running into if they don't represent the entire body.
I couldn't agree more. He's absolutely right.
It's the people who look at the AMA as only being a modelers organization. Well, we're going to model these airplanes, and we're going to put months and months in work in making this thing scale and beautiful, and then as an afterthought we make go fly this thing. And I think that's the mentality of those people, and it's just it's outdated by about 15 years.
It's great. I mean, I know some guys that do that. They're incredibly skilled craftsmen. They make beautiful birds. But as Patrick stated, unfortunately, they represent a community that is getting smaller and smaller. change is hard. Nobody likes it, but unfortunately, it's necessary. And if you don't change with the times, you'll be behind them.
Right. And
Yeah, you're going to be left behind, for sure.
And don't get me wrong, I love building airplanes. I love I love building balsa airplanes. But there's so much more to it than that, and the total aspect of the hobby needs to be represented by an organization like the AMA, or they're going to be irrelevant.
I agree. I mean, if you're talking, this is supposed to be our voice as model flyers as a whole, and yeah, everyone should get a voice into that organization, or somebody else is going to do it for them.
There's another organization that's going to come along, and I think
that's exactly.
And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if within the next 5 years that starts to happen, and AMA might be like, oh, whoa, where'd that come from?
Just as a thought, Air Bears is a community-based organization as well.
There you go.
There you go.
Wink, wink.
So is the flight test community in a way. I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know. I don't know how they were structured organizationally, so I don't know about that.
Well, flight tests not so much, but the community.
True.
Well, the community hasn't organized yet.
Right.
Really.
In order to be recognized federally as a CBO, there's a few little things you have to get in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you have enough people in the community. That's the one thing about this hobby. No matter whatever it is that you do, I'm also into gaming. So you look in the gaming community. You have people from all walks of life. We have people in the RC hobby in the community who are attorneys. You have folks that are insurance geeks like myself, and know a little bit about risk management and stuff like that, that can come together and say, okay, what is it going to take legally to form an organization? What is it going to take in terms of insurance and risk management to form a community? And you get enough people who have had enough, and they all grab their torches and pitchforks, and then they're marching in a direction. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right, Scott. The community's not one now. Not to say it can never be one.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a question off the YouTube comment section, and it's from a guy named Chuckles, and he says, so any purposeful hobby flying is not hobby flying. If I'm flying as a mentor for a school STEM program, do I need 107 certification?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I believe that the FAA has made an exception for education and STEM programs of that nature.
I know that at one point the Pittsburgh office, the FAA office in Pittsburgh, was sending letters out to school districts, basically stating that if you are giving education to kids based on flying, you have to be a registered pilot or something like that.
Right.
Then there was another issuance that came out and said, no, we're backing off of that. So
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, no. This is how difficult it has been, is because depending on which FAA representative you talk to, you get a different answer. They fully admit that they can't even get their message right within their own house. So I know that all this information is really negative and it's depressing, but bear in mind that I guarantee you a lot of this stuff is not going to stay the way it is now.
Right.
They're making these rules as a knee-jerk reaction, and they're fully aware that it's not an ideal situation and things are going to be changing. But Patrick, yes, you're right. That is the situation right now. If a teacher wants to do it and teach some kids how to fly, they have to have a 107. But I can tell you for a fact right now that they are working on changing that at this moment.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I had heard. But let me ask this. I'm a teacher. Say I go out and I teach some kids to fly, and hey, maybe I even make it part of my curriculum, so technically maybe I'm getting paid for this. Who's going to police it? Who's going to monitor that? I mean,
not the FAA.
I'm not saying that I'm going to do that, but I'm just saying Who is going to police this?
Yeah, they don't have unmanned drones flying over our communities trying to find out who's flying under 101 or 107
Right.
and bust you. But I think in regards to enforcement, you bring up a good point, Patrick. I mean, with all of the people that are involved in the hobby, whether part of an organization with years of experience or somebody brand new walking into a Target and grabbing a quad off a shelf. Um, I don't think that they really have a way to really manage it until something happens. And that's usually when you find the enforcement, is after an accident or after an incursion. If they're able to catch the person. You hear about all of these drones spotted near airports, but they never seem to catch the operator.
No,
or the
because they're
pilot.
chasing a shadow. They're chasing
Exactly.
shadows.
Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah, they readily admit that they currently do not have the staff nor the resources to enforce these rules that they're coming out with. That being said, I'm not publicly saying that you should break them. Just
I'm not
saying
either.
keep that in mind when
Yeah.
you go out and you want to go fly for fun. Follow some basic safety rules and go have fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's interesting because I did a aerospace education talk with some of the cadets in our squadron for CAP one evening on quads, on quadcopters, on drones, and we talked about the benefits and usage. You find now that farmers are using them in certain farming applications, things of that nature. And I brought my Phantom 3, and I had a couple other little smaller quads. I had a little 250 quad that I put together, and was showing them, and one of our officers had asked, well, could you fly one? And being a member of the community, being responsible, I'm like, no, first of all, I can't fly around, shouldn't be flying around people, can't fly around, and I'm within 5 miles of an airport. I start going through the mental checklist and numbers. I said, but what I can do, especially for the Phantom, which is really cool, is I can turn it on and activate the camera. Won't have props on it, and I can show them how the gimbal works. And the kids loved it. They were tickled that they could see themselves. They're looking down at my phone or my tablet or whatever, and they're seeing themselves, and I'm moving the camera around, and they're like, "Wow, that's really cool."
Yeah.
So you can find ways to stimulate the imagination, at least until the FAA gets their collective hands around STEM programs and education programs, to where there's not that, well, if I decide to, you know, install the props and spin this thing up and fly it, will I get in trouble for it? And typically you find that with people who do what? Follow the rules. People
Right.
who won't follow the rules are going to break them anyway.
Right. It's
Well, exactly.
like making gun-frry areas. Well, that's great for people who are going to respect that, but the people who you worry about aren't going to respect it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Patrick, I'm from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for doing that. So much of these problems can be solved just by education. So really, man, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all the hard work you're doing to get the word out and to introduce this technology to people who are unfamiliar with it.
Well, I don't. It's not exactly my. I'm not exactly the Don Quixote here, but or
I'm
whatever.
sorry, that was directed. I'm sorry, that was directed
at Irby.
Our distinguished CAP member. I got the.
There we go,
I got the
Irby.
name
Yeah,
wrong.
I'm like,
Sorry.
I started feeling really good
Little
about
awkward.
myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to take credit for this, even though I didn't do anything. All right.
That's quite all right. It was my pleasure. I had fun, but I tell you, the work that the flight test community is doing, all three of my boys, when we were at Flightfest, I'll tell the story real quick. I signed all three of them up for the projects in the STEM tent, and it was really cool to see Jake and the guys that were helping him in the STEM tent really work with the kids, and you could see those light bulbs go off. My oldest son was in the middle school, high school section where they actually had to build a plane that could carry a full Gatorade bottle and had to fly a circuit. And their plane was one of the 4 or 5, because they were in teams, that actually flew. So it had to fly. The bottom wing had to detach, and then it had to fly again. And so they were able to do it
Wow.
successfully. I mean, it was a
That's
lot of
great.
fun, and
So,
to see that. So for any of the teachers like Patrick, such as yourself, you get the technology in the schools.
Hmm.
That's how this thing really is going to change and change for
Yeah.
the better.
yeah, that's one of
Um,
the things we're looking at
and
doing.
that's exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm really
education is key.
I'm really disappointed that I didn't make a point of meeting Jake Marshall while I was at Flightfest, but so much was going on. That just went past me for somehow.
Yep. Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a whole lot of things going on
Yeah,
at
we
Flight
did.
Fest.
Yeah,
So
we did.
my goodness.
And if it keeps getting bigger and bigger, oh, it's just gonna get like better,
It's
but harder
I
to meet
know.
everyone.
Yeah.
Well, not no. There's so much there that I mean that was part of what our last episode was about. Between just
Well,
how
and
big it was and the problems that we saw, and
we've done two podcasts that were supposed to be totally focused on Flight Fest, and we only got to like Saturday afternoon. We haven't finished off yet.
yeah, I don't know that we'll ever get to, Pat.
I don't either, but man, Saturday night was awesome.
Yeah, well, that's probably going to have to be one of the late night podcasts.
Yeah, one
I
of the
have a
adults
feeling.
only.
Yeah, the
Well, I
adults
know
only
I enjoyed.
podcast.
I certainly enjoyed listening to it because it took me back, and so it's like it was last year too. I mean, it takes you back, and it truly is the way I looked at it, and I enjoyed meeting people there, and it was my first time meeting Scott. I had seen and Scott, you may have been there last year as well. I don't think I got a chance to meet you last year,
That was our
but
debut.
Yeah.
yeah, I looked at that as like a big family reunion, and that's exactly what it is. So, Patrick,
Yeah.
when you and I were working the main gate
Yeah.
and cars were coming in, that was my first time meeting you. I was like, man, your voice sounds familiar. And that's when you say, yeah, I work on the
That's
community
funny.
podcast. I'm like, wow, okay, that's cool. But I mean, it's like a huge family reunion, and again,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
lot of the folks that are there are the folks, as we're talking about this 101 and 107 issue, these are going to be the folks that are following the rules. And so going back to, Patrick, your example of the gun-free zone, you're going to have a bunch of folks out there that aren't, which is why the FAA is coming down, I think, hard on the hobby. And, do they need to be hard? Yeah, I don't know how many of those issues where you have um, airport incursions are actually real, or in terms of reporting, whether the reporting is erroneous.
Right.
So
And
I'm
there have
sorry, go
been
ahead.
documented accounts of erroneous reporting.
Gentlemen,
Right.
I think what's going on here with the FAA is that they are, I think they're purposely erring on the side of caution, and they're being a little more strict than they probably could be initially, and then they will slowly relax those as time goes on, instead of doing it the other way around. Because from a safety aspect, the the other way poses more risk. So it does make sense to be a little more strict right off the bat, and then to relax it as time goes on. When they start seeing the data come in that, hey, these things aren't really that dangerous, they don't pose a significant risk, then they'll start to relax it as time goes on. Um,
Yeah,
so
I'm looking at the number of, when they talked about registering your unmanned aerial system, and at first I guess people thought it was just quadcopters or hexcopters or whatever, but actually, if you have an aircraft that's over half a pound, it should be registered. Even if it's
Hmm.
an airplane, even if it's fixed wing. So I looked at, so on the FAA's website, you can check the number of registrations. I boiled it down to pretty much my neighborhood, and in my neighborhood there were 255 registrations,
Wow.
and that was
Really?
just within my little zip code, and I live in Northern Virginia. So in my little zip code in Northern Virginia, 255 registrations. And so you're
Times
looking at
$5.
times $5. And that's and that's if you didn't get in early to get your
Right.
$5 refund.
That's right.
Which I didn't register at first because the AMA was in that tug of war. Well,
Yep.
right now we're telling our members not to. Well, we're telling them no, 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 no. And then all of a sudden, I think it was I was at air show that they have out in Manassas, and AMA happened to be there. So I walked up to a guy in AMA and said, hey, I know there's been this tug of war. What are you guys telling us? I haven't really seen anything. Well, we're telling our members to go ahead and register. Yeah, okay, whatever. So, I mean, $5, it wasn't going to kill my bank, but I went ahead and did it because I want to make sure I'm following, make sure you're following the rules. You're being responsible.
Yeah,
Yep,
and-
I paid my $5 too.
Yep.
Me too.
Me too. Gentlemen, we have to keep in mind, and for all of you listeners out there, just remember that there are 5. No, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. There are 4. I was going to say 5 because Air Bears is considering filing suit against the FAA, but right now there's 4 lawsuits against the FAA for several things, including the registration. So right now the FAA is building a house of cards. Because if only one of those lawsuits is successful, then we have to start this all over again.
Yeah, the whole thing
Yeah,
comes
exactly.
tumbling
Scary
down.
thought, but that's the current situation. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is right now.
Yeah, it
Can I
is.
take
It's
this
terrible.
this outside of the recreation flying / whatever everything else is under 107? What if I want to build and market, let's say, an autonomous mapping drone of some sort? Where does that fall under
The word,
FAA regs?
the fact that you said the word market,
And that's what I'm talking about. I want to make
Right.
money on this thing. Why not?
that's 107, my friend.
That puts you in a commercial
Okay,
commercial
so that's
venture.
commercial. But under 107, that autonomous mapping drone has to be within line of sight.
Yes.
So what you're telling me is the FAA is still hamstringing the UAV industry in that they're not allowing the development, or at least not the use, of autonomously operating drones within the United States.
No, not quite. That's not quite true. You can in the 107-2 advisory circular, which is basically it kind of boils down the whole, what is it, like 86-page 107 regulation document. Kind of boils it down a little bit. You can use autonomous. You can use a drone autonomously.
Okay.
There are certain situations. There are certain stipulations that still must be met. The visual line of sight is one of them. Regardless
Right,
of whether you're controlling it or whether it's controlling itself, still needs to be within your
But-
vision.
That's a serious restriction that would prohibit, say, the development of something like a mapping drone or a package delivery drone, say, with Amazon or something like that.
Well, not necessarily, because there's other ways that those stipulations can be met. One of them is, I think 107 states that if you're flying your aircraft, and we have to start using the word aircraft because that's what the FAA
what they are.
calls everything now. Yeah.
Well,
So-
to be honest with you, I'm think that's what I have in my mind. This is a legit, fairly sizable, over 55-pound autonomous operating aircraft.
Oh, if it's over 55, then you're
Yeah.
not talking 107 anymore.
No.
Yeah,
So you're
that's at a
talking-
different-
You got to
No,
be a
that's
registered
completely
pilot. This
different.
is a registered aircraft.
Yeah, you're talking N numbers. You're talking.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
And I can't answer those questions because that's
Well,
beyond my knowledge base.
But I just wanted to make sure there was some place out there for something like that, because I know people are going to be developing these things, and there's a place for them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I would hate to see government restricting
No,
industry in that way.
You're talking about getting an airworthiness certification
Okay.
from the FAA, getting an N number, getting it registered. Pretty much all the hoops and hurdles that you have to do for full size aircraft.
Okay.
Yeah, anything
Yeah.
over 55, it's not what they consider SUAS.
It's not small. Gotcha.
Right.
Yep. Because even the AMA has special regulations for anything over 55 pounds
Sure.
Right.
when you're flying just standard RC as well. So
Yep.
it comes into a whole nother realm at that
Right.
point.
Okay.
And the 107 it's restrictive, but it does allow, for example, like the guys that want to do like pipeline inspections, they need to fly for like miles at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That can be done under 107, and what they do, one of the ways it can be done is that you have the guy that's, let's say you have a 2 mile range on your transmitter.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a buddy, you park him 2 miles ahead of where you are, the next guy 2 miles ahead of where he is, and you just kind of leapfrog from transmitter to transmitter.
Okay.
And that's legal under 107.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's ways you can do it. They're cumbersome and it doesn't make it easy, but there's ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it difficult though.
Yeah,
So-
what makes it difficult is for like us air bears. It's they kind of say one of the benchmarks of when they say like that you've made it is starting to get hate mail. Well, yeah, yay for me. Because
Really?
when we had to say, you have to get the 107 now to do this, that hurt a lot of people's feelings, including my own. But yeah, technically, if your own child like didn't come home one night and you wanted to put your quadcopter up to see if you could find him or her,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not certified, that's illegal.
Right.
Which is crap.
And yes.
I'm sorry.
And
There ain't no
that's-
other way to say it. It's crap.
Yeah.
So that's one of the. So one of my members asked a question. And I said, well, what if my hobby is search and rescue? What if my hobby is helping my community stay safe? What if I consider that my hobby? And that's what got us thinking that, okay, well, yeah, he has a point here. There's a valid argument to be made that now the FAA is starting to define what we can do for fun.
Mhm.
And we strongly believe that that is beyond the scope of their authority.
Yeah, and I think Scott, to your point, I think again, I think this is where government cuts its nose off to spite its face. When you have community-based organizations such as Air Bears, who the sole focus is to be there for the community in the community's time of need, to throw up a hurdle or a stumbling block does more to harm the community than it does to meet some kind of safety requirement. Now, I understand for the FAA, they have to manage all of this airspace, and it's the national airspace is huge. I get it. But at the same time, for organizations that are out there to help other people, there's got to be something that you could do to relax those requirements, because it's not like Air Bears is going out there working by themselves. You're going out there probably with some law enforcement agency or some other rescue organization,
It's the only
and
way
you're
we do it.
operating in conjunction with in order to bring people home, to find that lost hiker, to look for whomever it is that you need to look for. And so I think there needs to be, not just from the RC community, but I think from the search and rescue community, from our law enforcement community, having them step up also and say, wait a minute, FAA, we get it. Look, we get it. You want the airspace to be safe, so do we. But we have situations where if you hamstring our ability to help bring people home, that doesn't help us. That doesn't help the community. And as a government organization, you're here ultimately to serve us and not the other way around.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a novel idea.
You bring up a good point, and that is the FAA's sole purpose is the safety of the national airspace, and public safety of the national airspace. So you're right. I mean, why would they want to stop an organization who's trying to keep the public safe?
Yeah, well,
Well-
and I want to interject right here a little bit because I've got Ryan Papp actually asking a question talking about assisting fire departments with either search and maybe using FLIR
Yep.
for
Love
spotting at a
Ryan.
fire
He's
scene,
awesome.
stuff like that. He says fire departments can't even buy and use Phantoms right now.
Wow.
That's true. Yes, because in order to do it, they have to be 107.
Right.
Well,
They can't use them.
well, for an example, there was an article that I read just recently, and actually, I need to pull it to make sure I'm citing it properly. I don't want to not give credit where credit's due. Of course, I'm in insurance. I'm an insurance geek. I've been in claims for almost 20 years. There's a company called ISO that and what they are is a company that works with insurance companies, and they put out publications. And one publication they put out was in terms of their emerging issues publication. It talks about exploring drones. And as a matter of fact, in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is a stone's throw from where I am, the local fire department has purchased um, uh, 2 or 3 drones for use in, because what fire departments want to use them for is to search for hotspots in buildings. You don't want to send and risk firefighters by putting them in spots where you know the building is going to collapse. And so using certain things like FLIR, you can tell, okay, this part of the building is really, really hot. The structure is most likely going to collapse. I can't put my guys there because I'm putting them in danger. And so, again, it talks about how these things are going to come up. The uses are going to come up. There was another article just recently, August 2nd, 2016, on the blog for the White House, harnessing the potential of unmanned aircraft systems technology. And guess what they talk about? Damage assessment, search and rescue, scientific research, those type of things. And so I know, as far as the insurance industry is concerned, I know that drones, and I hate using that term, but it's a term that has stuck.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Yeah, it's
drones
stuck.
drones are the insurance industry is looking at it for damage assessment. You know, in terms of going into an area where you have several homes affected, you could put up a drone and take a look at entire blocks versus having to go house by house.
Like the situation that happened down in Louisiana a couple weeks ago.
Yep, absolutely.
Excellent example.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, there are methods in place where government agencies can use this technology without getting a 107. And what they have to do is they have to do a lot of paperwork and get a contract for public or civil operations. And that's one way they can do it. Now, unfortunately, from an Air Bear's perspective, that option doesn't work for us because we're unable to respond to an emergency situation if we have to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork and then submit it to the FAA and wait for them to hem-hawed over it and then say, okay, yeah, you guys can go look for this little lost girl that happened 2.5 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah, it happened a month ago.
Right. So that's why we strongly encourage our membership to get the 107. It's really the only legal way at this time that we can offer our services.
And
Right.
what is the cost for that test?
It's $150 for the test.
Okay.
And it's a 2-year certificate, correct?
Yep, it's good for 2 years. Now,
Okay.
I don't know if they plan to charge us another $150 to renew our certification or not. I don't know. I haven't seen any information on that. But yeah, once you pass the test, it's good for 2 years.
And you've been studying for that test, correct?
Yes, I have.
So do you feel the study material is relevant to your operations?
Hmm.
I mean, do you feel like this is what I'm asking is, does this assessment is it a valid assessment in your opinion based on what you have to study?
I think I'll just say right now I've gained a much higher respect for pilots, like full-scale pilots. these are very, very, very smart people. You practically have to be a weatherman to fly a plane.
Yeah.
And, and that's just one aspect of it. I think now you have to bear in mind that no one has seen the test yet. So this is all speculative as far as what's going to be on it.
Right.
There are some pretty good educated guesses out there. There are some good study guides. Some of them people want you to pay for, and some of them are free. I'm going the free route because I'm cheap.
Yeah. Me too.
And so I've been studying it, and it seems like there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't really necessarily need to know, like stay at least 500 feet away from a cloud. Yeah, I don't want to especially when I have my ceiling is 400 feet. So
Right.
it kind of I'm like, do I need? I hope the test doesn't have that on it because yeah, yeah. There's things in there that don't really pertain or translate to what we as hobbyists, as volunteers, as model flyers need to know. That being said, there are some things that are good. We all must recognize controlled airspace. Last thing we want to do is cause some injury to somebody flying around in a real plane. So that's an important aspect, and that's one of the reasons why I think that a 107 is good in that respect. I think that they just need to. I just have to be patient. I've learned in the past 2 years not to get all flustered and up in arms about everything that the FAA says because it doesn't take long for them to change their mind and start coming out with revisions and this, that, and the other. And if history is any example, that's going to continue to happen. But gentlemen, let me give you an example of why some of these rules make a lot of sense. So, talking to my dad the other day, he says, "Hey, I went and saw a St. Paul Saints game. We have a minor league team here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, and they have a brand new stadium that is right in the heart of downtown St. Paul." And he says, "Yeah, during one of the intermissions, during one of the innings, they're flying a drone." And I'm like, "Can you tell me a little bit more about this, Dad?"
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah." He says, "So they pull an audience member out, and they have him the controls, and what they do is he has to fly."
Are you?
No, just listen. It gets worse. So he has to fly this little drone and try and land it on like a 4-foot pad, and if he does, then he wins a prize. And I'm like, okay. So let me get this straight. Now, bear in mind, gentlemen, that downtown St. Paul is within a mile of St. Paul Regional Airport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Been
so
there.
I said, let me get this straight, Dad. So they're flying a commercial aircraft, and they're handing over the controls to this commercial aircraft to someone who is not qualified to pilot it. And
Never flown one before.
They're doing it inside a stadium
Full
where
of
there is
people.
a standing temporary flight restrictions against flying in stadiums. And they're doing it within Class B airspace.
Class B, at least.
Good
So
Lord.
I called the business manager for St. Paul Saints, and I'm like, "Guys, I introduced myself, who I was, and like, we're very interested and sensitive to the safe and legal operation of this technology. So, letting you guys know that you could get into some really hot water with the FAA if you continue to operate this as the way you're doing it. I'd be happy to help you any way I could. So let's see, maybe they'll hire me as a consultant, but
There
who
you
knows?" But yeah,
Hey, there you go.
It's stuff like that where education is key. They had no idea that they were doing anything wrong.
And you know, I'd be interested just from an insurance point
Yeah.
who their risk manager and their agent is, because and kind of going back to and about the last episode when you guys were talking about safety, and that kind of goes back to, you know, why I guess the FAA is doing what they're doing, but why we do and why Flight Test does what it does when it's trying to educate the community. you could risk, so that sports team could risk not having any coverage at all if there's an accident. Because if
Wow.
they're, first of all, violating FAA rules, they're violating any kind of community-based organizations rules.
Mm-hmm.
There are specific exclusions in insurance policies that bar any kind of coverage for any willful or wanton, hey, that's not, that's not good, no coverage kind of thing. And so I think that's why we do what we do. And Scott, to your point, in terms of not uh, getting up in arms about what the FAA is doing. And I think once they have more of an exposure as to what's happening in the community, because there's no reason why you need to study what the difference between IFR and VFR flight is. That
Correct.
makes no sense,
Right.
especially for what we do. Typically, we're not flying through clouds. I don't know of too many people that want to lose their investment because even for my Phantom, I'm not going to fly it near a cloud. That thing is expensive. That's
Exactly.
craziness. That's
Yeah.
insanity.
Right.
And
And
so, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I actually got a question for you, Irby,
Yep.
because you bring up a really interesting point because
Yep.
being a previous homeowner and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff and having to buy insurance and do all those
Yep.
things, are the insurance companies now writing specific policies saying we won't cover
As
this?
as far as I know, there are probably more people out there. Each insurance company is different.
Hmm.
Typically, in terms of homeowners policies, they're kind of written on the same basic framework, and that's across the industry. They are taking a look at it. I haven't seen any exclusions. What they go back to is willful and wanton, so or what they call
Hmm.
expected and intended.
Yep.
So if you have an accident with a quad, if you're flying a quad in a dense area and you know that there's a possibility that you can have an accident, you could expect that that's going to happen. You could be looking at a possible exclusion to where there's no coverage under the policy.
Okay.
And
And here's the thing, the way this hobby has always been, it's never been about if you're going to crash, it's a matter of when.
When?
of when, right? And it's absolutely right. And so there's a way of how you operate the aircraft. It's the same thing with the AMA. So as a member of the AMA, if you are a park pilot, I think you have up to $1 million in coverage. If you are a full member, full scale, whatever, I have it. I forget what the other level is, but that's up to $2 million. In
Well,
those policies are certain exclusions, and one of those is how you operate the aircraft.
hmm
And
and
so, if you're operating an aircraft in a way that violates that, from an insurance standpoint, we're going to look at how are you flying it as far as the community-based organization goes. If you're flying it in a
hmm
way that violates that, chances are you're not going to be able to piggyback on your homeowner's policy for coverage.
right, right,
Right.
and that's one of the things that I've heard is they always try to go after the homeowner's coverage first. The AMA has always tried to do that, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've heard.
I believe that the AMA insurance kicks in after any homeowner's insurance.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, from my
Yeah, it's
understanding, that's the way it
from an
goes.
excess
They're like,
basis.
no, yeah,
Right,
we're gonna hit that homeowner's insurance first, and then whatever's left over, then we'll pick up if we have
right,
to.
Right.
right.
Hmm. Okay. Well, that's good because I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there that doesn't know that. So.
Right, and that's the thing in terms of knowledge and educating, and I think what this has done, what the FAA is doing, it has really, I think, to a benefit of that, has caused people to kind of educate themselves on things like safety and some of those very issues. And so what Scott did by calling calling the local minor league team is open their eyes to, maybe we need to do something like maybe a race around the bases versus handing somebody an aircraft that could go flying into the stands and hurting somebody.
Hmm.
Can you imagine that in front of, on the front page of the local paper?
Right.
And if
That makes us all look bad.
And it makes
Yeah.
all look bad. If it makes the front page of the paper, guess who's going to be knocking on the door? The
Oh,
FAA is going to be next,
Yeah.
saying, "Tell us about this."
well, not only that, Irby, but all it does is make the agencies that we're trying to help more apprehensive about calling air bears.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just all this negative, all of this, fear mongering. It goes to hurt our overall goal and our cause. So yeah, that's why we're doing as much education as we possibly can right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey guys, I'm gonna run upstairs and grab another soda. So keep on. I'll be back in a sec.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
we'll hold
Yeah.
down the fort for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, well, while we're on the subject, I don't know, Irby, you may have met Luis Rusi this year at Flightfest. But he actually has been in insurance for 24 years, and he says that he's had one request for information on drone insurance. Just one.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And like I said, the insurance companies probably because, and I'm glad that he chimed in on that because it's not something that we've seen yet. And I can, in terms of the claims that I've handled, and especially in terms of homeowners liability, uh,
Right.
I haven't seen any in my 18 years experience where it's involved NRC aircraft. So that
Yeah.
speaks to the community, but it also speaks to the fact that um, uh, it's still early on, and with the changes in technology and the availability, maybe we start seeing them. But I
Oh,
know
you
in
will.
terms of the industry,
Yeah.
I know the insurance industry is looking at drones for damage assessment.
Well, according to what Luis is saying here, it says that ISO has exclusions already written for drones.
Yeah, they do, and it just depends on the insurance company that adopts the ISO policy. So
Okay.
it could be again, it depends on when that policy takes effect because policies take effect at different times, and it
Right.
depends on the insurance company. But I wouldn't be surprised to see more exclusions for drones on policies. I really wouldn't, especially given the fact that everything that you hear about drones on the news is negative.
Everything.
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah. It's terrible. But instead of just keep going down this poor rabbit hole of how bad everything is and all that, I really want to get with Scott a little bit and talk about some of the good things that the Air Bears have done that he can speak about.
Yeah, well,
So,
uh, like I said, we've been focusing a lot of our focus has been on education recently because,
mhm,
as I stated, with all of this legal turmoil, it's kind of made the agencies a little apprehensive about calling us. But uh, we did. Do you guys know about the horses?
The horses?
The
I
horses.
heard about the horses.
Let me
I
tell you
did
about the
not.
horses. So
Yeah, tell us about the horses.
I get a. This past spring. I get a call from our local sheriff over in Carver County. He says, "Hey, you're with Air Bears." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Will you help us train our horses?" And I was like, "What? We're drone guys. We're not cowboys." Uh, and he said, "Well, what's going on is our mounted police divisions occasionally, when they're at like say a big outdoor music festival or a parade, sometimes there'll be a little drone up in the air, and our horses are spooked by it.
Oh wow.
And so we need to address this issue. Will you help us?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So now we've been working with Carver and a couple of other counties here in the Twin City metro area. We go out to their ranches with our membership, and we have a training program, and we get their horses used to drones. Um,
That's awesome.
right at
That's
the
cool.
beginning, we highly recommend that some of these exercises that we perform are done dismounted because these horses said they've never seen these things. And it's interesting, some of them could care less, but some other horses, they get really freaked out. But by the end of our training program, which we offer for free to our entire membership on our website,
Mhm.
um, when they get done with that, the horses are well acclimated. and the authorities, they love it. They consider this to be very, very, very high value. It's way better for them from a safety aspect to find out if their horse is scared of a drone in a controlled environment than when
Yeah.
those guys are out on the field trying to get a job done. Um, so that's been a
Well, you
really,
don't want
really
a horse spooked
good positive
in
thing.
a big crowd either.
No. No, you,
Well.
you don't want some 1,000-pound animal getting all upset in a crowd of people. That's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
good.
That's very
Yeah,
bad.
you think a drone's going to cause some problems? Yeah, wait till that 1,000-pound horse starts running around crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what we're finding out is that the applications for this technology is seemingly endless. And I give you a perfect example. So we went to this past spring. We went to the very first search and rescue symposium put on by the University of Nevada, and all the guys who are like professional search and rescue people were at this event, including Gene Robinson. And if you don't know who Gene Robinson is, he is practically the godfather of search and rescue with drones. He's the guy from Texas EcuSearch.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
yes.
He's
Yes.
the one that challenged the FAA when the FAA said, "Hey, you can't do that," and he said, "Really? Try and
Yeah,
stop me."
he was the first one,
He
right?
was the first one, and he
Yeah.
goes around the world and does this. So he was in a situation overseas somewhere, and it was a horrible, like, flood disaster. Their communication was literally hand-delivered notes. That's how they were communicating. So
Hmm.
somebody had an idea. So you guys know when you take your cell phone and you're trying to send your buddy a text and you don't have service, well, your cell
Mhm.
phone keeps that message in a little queue. And when your phone gets service, it immediately sends it. So what they were doing was they were typing a text message, strapping their phone to the drone, and sending it sky high until it got service. And that's how they
Oh,
were
wow.
communicating.
Holy
So
Oh,
now,
that's a good idea.
oh, totally. So now, I mean, it's a communication repeater. It's a communication device now. Stuff like that never even came into our minds. But yeah, that's a fantastic use. And you know what? You don't have to be a good pilot just to go up and down. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, exactly.
Down's really easy.
So
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the down part's so easy. I mean,
Yeah.
gravity sucks.
right.
Undefeated.
That's right.
Yep. We've got a member in Greece. He signed up. He downloaded the little brochure that we offer on our website, and he went to his local consulate office and introduced himself, said what he had and what it did, and they were like, "Oh my God, thank you for showing up. We need
Wow.
you like right now." And he has been working with them ever since to help them manage the refugee crisis that's going on over in Europe.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So things like that. Um, over in Australia, they're using them. They're combing the beaches for sharks. Um,
Makes sense.
yeah. Um,
Sharks, saltwater crocs.
yeah. Anything. So, yeah. Actually, there's been more beneficial uses overseas than there has been here in the States
Is
for
that simply
obvious
because
reasons.
of the restrictions or
Right.
the
Yeah. It's
the turmoil?
right.
Well,
Exactly.
I think what you'll find there too is that the embrace of technology over in other areas happens a little faster than it does here.
You mean like
Um,
Texas? They do
or
whatever they want down
any,
there.
yeah, that's true.
And they're doing great.
And I can,
That state has embraced it. They're doing fantastic work down there.
Yep.
yeah. Well, they're a country in and of themselves. I mean,
Yes,
absolutely
that's
right.
pretty much.
The
Yep.
Republic
And they want to be more.
Yeah. Well, it makes you wonder what that technology could do. Say, for instance, in a town in Italy that just suffered that
Earthquake.
6 or 7 point earthquake
Yep.
with all of those lives lost. Being able to use that technology for search and rescue, for damage assessment, things of that
Yes.
nature.
Yes.
And, I think just even for damage assessment, Patrick mentioned the floods down in Baton Rouge, being able to, because resources are limited. For the feds, they can spend money like whatever, but for our local communities, our local fire departments, sheriff's departments, what have you, resources are limited. So being able to marshal and put those resources where it makes sense, to be able to use a drone to fly over uh, a half square mile area and say, okay, we need to put our fire department over there. Our sheriffs need to go there. We need to set up temporary shelter here. To be able to do that real time, I think is very beneficial, and just something that can really help, really bridge the community with the service providers, meaning your fire department, your police departments, just bridge them together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, firemen are calling the drone the best firefighting tool since the hose. Um, they absolutely love this technology, and we anticipate that a copter of some type is going to be standard issue equipment in every fire truck, every police squad car. You know, we're gonna we're gonna look back someday at drones the same way we think about cell phones. Like, what did I ever do
Right.
before I had my cell phone?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I can see that.
there was a video that was on my Facebook feed that I had shared, and there's a company over in Europe. I want to say they're in Germany, and they are developing a drone that can carry the automated external defibrillator.
Oh,
Right.
it's the ambulance drone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you take a look at where technology eventually is going to go, where it's coming and where it could go, and talk about the embrace of that technology to be able to deliver something that can save a life, to get to that point. I think they will be, much further ahead than we are once, we start talking about embracing the technology and what it could do.
Right.
And it's funny because as I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, how could it do that? And last week in my job, I underwent first aid training because we have to do that every year to stay current. And the folks that were putting on the training had this little device about the size of my cell phone, a little thicker. And I said, "Is that a defibrillator?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "And that actually, how long could that last?" Well, it could give up to 4 shots at 150 joules each.
Wow.
So I said, I guess you could, attach that to a drone and take it to a location and at least begin some life saving, at least until paramedics arrive,
Yeah.
just to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that video. They were claiming, depending on how it's set up, you could get the drone there within a couple of minutes versus 10 minutes or something like that with the first responders.
Right.
Oh, huge.
I mean, it makes
It's
perfect
Big,
sense.
big time saving.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can deliver a life jacket to somebody who's drowning in seconds instead of
Yeah.
a lifeguard swimming out to them.
I actually remember last year in Texas when they had the flooding down there, and they showed a couple that was stranded at their house, and they were trying to get them out and couldn't figure out how to get them over this to give them anything. And this guy had a Phantom, and he took a rope over to the people, and then they were able to get life jackets and were able to be pulled out of their house because they couldn't get them any other way.
Yep.
It was really amazing to see. And those are the kind of things that I think we need to show more. People need to see more.
And that guy's name is Garrett Brill, and he's been a founding member of Air Bear since day one. And,
There you go.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching that video and I was like, oh my God. And that's, one of the reasons why I bought a Phantom was because of those kind of things. I mean, it wasn't the only reason because, again, at some point I would still like to do some aerial video photography and stuff like that.
Sure.
But when I saw that, I mean, I saw first the fear on the people's faces in the house, and then I saw the relief after that drone, and they weren't scared of it at all. I mean, when it flew down there, I mean, he hovered it right there, and that guy reached right up and undid, and then the guy took off. I was like, oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, when your life is on the line, you'll accept help from anything or anyone.
Exactly.
That
That
drone
was
didn't look scary at all. Then.
those were 2 of 4 people he saved that day.
Really?
Wow.
The other 2 people were they were in their pickup truck. They tried to drive through some very deep water, and we all know what happened after that. So they searched for that truck for 3 hours, and Garrett showed up with his Inspire, and he found him in 20 minutes.
Oh,
Ain't that incredible?
So I mean, that's proof of concept right there. We know this can work because it already has.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I think the education needs to get out there, and that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, trying to give back to the community and educate them. And I mean, I know most of the flight test community already knows this stuff, but maybe they'll share it with somebody else. Maybe something good will happen,
And people need to start being more vocal about the positive nature of it. Just I don't know, maybe challenge when you see a ridiculous news story on the news. Maybe simply shoot a message and say, "Hey guys, that was yellow journalism. Why don't you talk about this aspect of it or something?"
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There'll be a let's see, in the upcoming issue of Drone 360 magazine, there'll be an article about air bears. So word is slowly getting out that some of the beneficial uses, some of the positive things that are happening, because we all know that typically the media likes to focus on the negative because that's what gets people to watch.
Well, of course.
People love drama.
Right. So the good stuff isn't always as exciting, but yeah, well, that's a good thing that's happening.
Yeah, well, I just got another message from Ryan. He says, the average response time for EMS is 5 to 15 minutes. So, we know we can go quicker than that.
Well, see, here's another thing. Up here in the Great White North, we have situations where people fall through the ice.
Yep.
Okay, so when something like that happens, you have 3 options. You have 1, you got to get an airboat over there, or a hovercraft, or somebody has to literally like scoot a John boat or a canoe to go get that person. We can get them a lifeline within seconds. We don't have to worry about the current way that we do things. We could do things a new way. But something about human nature that we fear what we don't understand, and we like to the reaction to something that is unknown is that I'm afraid and I must kill it. So one of the biggest problems that we're having right now is people being shot out of the sky. It's happened 5 times. Most recently, I believe, over in Vermont, next to Robert Duvall's house.
Right, Virginia.
Which is
It's
the
actually
only
Virginia.
reason.
Oh, really?
Virginia? All right.
Yeah, he has
The
a
only
place in
reason why
Virginia.
it made the news, and I'm not positive on the details of whether or not this actually happened or not, but
Apparently it did.
It happened.
This is another great. So, my problem is these people are shooting down aircraft, and the FAA has not said a word about it. That really needs to change. They put out a little memo and they said, hey, by the way, you can't do that, and that's it. They haven't. Well, the FAA can't prosecute. That's the Department of Justice. That's their job. But there's no consequence.
No.
That's troubling to me.
I remember the one down in Kentucky that guy did. He shot down with a shotgun in the middle of town. He didn't even get a ticket for discharging a firearm within the city limits.
Yeah, and eventually they got thrown out.
That's disturbing. Even Garrett down in Texas, the guy who saved 4 people's life, they've taken pot shots at him. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you're like a local hero down there? And he says, Scott, down in Texas, there's some people don't even own a TV. So, uh, yeah, again, education is key.
Yes.
Well, exactly. You know, education is a big part of it, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on, Scott, because I know you can definitely put a positive spin on it and show it for what it really is instead of what the media is trying to show.
Yeah,
Yep.
the positive is the potential, the amount of good that this technology can do.
Hmm.
And you know, people are afraid of their privacy being violated. People are afraid of drones someday maybe delivering a bomb. Those are
Yep.
legitimate concerns.
Sure they are.
Right now, those they don't have the capability to really do that. But the point we have to all remember is that any technology can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
And the example that I like to use is lasers. You know, lasers came out, and people thought they were really cool. They started using them to point at things on whiteboards and cats. Oh my God, cats!
Yes, love
Where
them.
would cats be without laser pointers? You know,
All right.
Yeah, where would
um,
we be without that enjoyment?
exactly. They're doing surgery with eyes, all this kind of
Hmm.
great stuff. So I don't think there's I think most the people would agree that lasers are a beneficial technology. But there are some people that think it's really fun to shine it at an aircraft going by, and that blinds the pilot. In
Yep.
fact, they have a specific name. They call them laser strikes. And
Hmm.
so that's a perfect
Yep.
example of something is very similar, of a very simple technology can be used for good or bad. You can't fix stupid.
Right.
Stupid people are going to keep
Right.
doing stupid things no matter what we do.
Right.
Well, probably the favorite quote I ever heard, and I have no idea who started it, but you can teach it to them, but you can't learn it for
No.
True.
them. And I
Yeah.
really like that because it's so true. I mean, you can teach it to them and teach it to them, but you can't learn it for them. And people that have no common sense will never have common sense.
Right. Really, the only option uh, is to overwhelm the bad with the good.
Right.
Right.
Well, and
Well,
yeah, exactly.
well,
Or
and also it's kind of that old adage, and we use it now ever since 9/11. It's been, especially you're, going through an airport or any kind of mass transit. If you see something, say something.
Hmm.
And I think in terms of the hobby, it's got to be the same way. We can't be to the point to where if we see somebody operating a quadcopter, hexcopter, glider, you know, aircraft, whatever, in a manner that's not safe, we can't be so wrapped up within ourselves to think that it's not our responsibility to walk up and say, hey, you know, you might want to do this a little differently. You
Right.
don't have to go up and say, you're not flying that correctly, you're not safe, this, that, and other thing.
Right.
But at the
Yes.
same time, be able to say something.
Yes.
If if you're at a local park and somebody's with a park flyer and they're flying it too close to people, being able to come up and say something to help educate, because we want the hobby to be safe for everybody. We
Yep.
want to, like Scott said, we want to overwhelm the bad with the good to be able to turn it into something good. You educate people, then you have one less person out there to do something stupid to put a black eye on the hobby.
Yep.
Correct. We we're not here to enforce these rules.
Right.
We can educate. Uh, one of the really good aspects of being an Air Bear member is this really bright, cool T-shirt that we give away for free. We're the people that know the rules. We've flown. We have the skill. We have the equipment, and we can be ambassadors to the up and comers, to the newbies who are just starting to get into it. And there's nothing better. Whenever I go fly, I try and I wear my shirt as much as I can because I'm often approached by people who are skeptical of my motivations for flying. And
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times they've asked me if I was you can do that? Are you a cop? I'm like, no, I'm an Air Bear member. We use these and we help save people's lives. And they're like, what? Really? You know, you have an opportunity to change somebody's mindset because right now our two biggest air bears, our two biggest hurdles right now is public perception and funding.
Yep.
The funding, we don't really have too much control over that. Wish we did, make my life a lot easier. But we do have some control over public perception. We can get out there and we can try, you know, those FPV goggles are worth their weight in gold, my friends. Take them
Yes, they
wherever
are.
you can. And when you fly, just pass them around. Let them see what we see. And they will, there you can watch their minds change right before your eyes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times while they are looking through my goggles, I'll ask them, say, can you see inside that house over there?
Right.
And they're like, no. I'm like, can you see inside any of the cars nearby? And they're like, no. I'm like, right, because this is really not a very good tool for spying on somebody. You really don't have to worry about that. They're not good at it.
Well,
And they're like, well, what? They're saying, well, you could always, you know, you should always get closer to that house. And I'm like, you're right, but you've heard this thing fly. I'm like, you think you can like just ignore a 25-pound bee that's near you?
Well, and that takes me to a story. Last year, I actually took my Phantom down to Springfield, Missouri, where my father-in-law lives, and he's never been around anything like that before, and he knows I fly and all that, but he never really said much about it. And I took the Phantom down there and had my iPad on it and took off, and you should have saw him. He was like, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen."
Yep.
He was like, I would have thought, you know, this thing would have been a little hokey or whatever, and he goes, the picture's really clear. He goes, but yet I can't really see anything going on. I mean, I can, but I can't. I mean, I can tell what things are, but I can't really, you know. And he goes, and it's loud. It's much louder than I expected it to be.
Right.
And I'm like, exactly. You know, I can't. I would rather take my Nikon DSLR with a 300 millimeter lens if I was going to do something like that, and spy on somebody. I could do that, and they would never even know I was looking.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the Phantom, everybody's gonna know I'm looking.
Everybody's gonna know.
Right.
Yeah, you're not sneaking up on anybody.
Yeah, no one. So
it's a horrible tool for that job.
Exactly. I mean, until they come out with a stealth one, I just don't see it. You know. And they're gonna have to get a whole lot better with cameras.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it was pretty cool because I mean he's 71 years old and he was astounded by number one how loud it was, but number two just watching it. I mean he was just amazed. Never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. I mean that reaction is typical. When we helped over here in western Wisconsin, we helped New Richmond Fire Department, and when the fire chief saw our video feed, he was like, "This changes everything for me."
Wow.
He says, awesome. No longer do I have to like. We were just helping him with a controlled grass fire. He's like, I don't have to react to what the fire is doing. I can be ahead of the game with this. Like I can get my guys out of trouble before they're even in trouble. And and now let me speak a little bit about drone racing, because these kids that are flying these copters and they're able to shoot through gaps and this, that, and the other represent a huge potential to their local community. Because when you're talking about a structure fire, one of the best pieces of information that a fire chief wants to know is whether this building is going to collapse on my guys if I send them in. And the only way they can do that right now is to send a guy in and take a look around. Well, these drone racing guys already possess these skills that allow them to fly inside a building, check it out, come back out, and get that information to them without having to risk any fireman's life. So, you drone racers, God bless you. Keep flying fast, keep flying tight, and keep flying cool, because one day you're going to help save some firemen's lives. And if you want to be an Air Bear, we'd love to have you, man. We'll get a shirt out to you as fast as we can.
And teach some of us old guys how to do that too.
That's right.
I'm trying, but boy, I'm not very good at it yet.
Yeah, I'm better with the fixed wing. I can race better with a plane than I can the quad.
I'm much better
Well,
with fixed wing too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, Eric,
yeah, Pat's.
Eric Monroe posted a video of a flight that he did with his new Lumineer quad,
Mhm.
and I don't want to say he's got to be around my age. I don't consider myself old, but he definitely was zipping in, in and out of gates and tight turns and all of that. So
Yeah,
they're
Eric's a
I think
great pilot.
Eric
yeah,
Eric does everything well. Everything that he does
Well, if
well.
my
His
job was
videos are
flying around for a living, I'd be good at it too.
No, I'm talking everything he does, from yo-yo to what, dude. The
oh
Yeah.
guy,
yeah.
Yeah.
he's
Evidently he's a
something else.
coffee aficionado, so he's he's great
Oh
at
my God, he makes the best coffee in the world. I'm telling you. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How old are you, Irby?
I turned 46 in June.
Okay, so you're my age. Okay, I'm
Wow.
45.
I'm
So,
46. So
all right.
Okay, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
we're the babies of the group.
Yeah, I'm the
I
old.
just
I'm the old man.
I consider myself, and my wife would agree. I'm just a big kid.
Well,
RC was out of reach for me as a kid, and it wasn't until I stumbled upon Flight Test actually that I found that I could get into the hobby and get into the hobby where it's not going to break my bank, and
That,
to be able to share it with my kids, just hoping that among other things in terms of legacy, they can pass that down to their kids, that love of flight, because and what the FAA probably doesn't realize is that for a lot of these kids, that becomes the gateway to becoming a full-scale pilot because
yeah.
absolutely.
You know
they
what?
get that love.
After you pass this 107 test, you have got a good footing on the knowledge that you need to continue it, and go the whole way.
Hmm.
That test is basically taken from the pilot's aeronautical knowledge handbook.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
so
I mean, we in the flight test community, I mean, we know two kids. Keegan
yeah,
is all but a licensed pilot, and Paul Jennings, he passes written. I guess he just needs to get his check ride.
Wow,
So,
that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
yeah. And by the way, Scott, when you get done with that 107 test, we need to talk.
You want some answers?
Well, I don't care about getting the answers, but I want to know what to study, where to study, and how to study.
Oh, just keep watching. Just keep watching the groups, man. All
Oh,
that
trust me.
information is going to start flooding.
Now,
We're
I do
But
starting to
have
take the test tomorrow, so
I
we're
do
going to
have a
start getting
I do
live
have a
info.
question. What is the cost to take the test? And is it so? For instance, if you don't pass the test the first time, are you having to pay over and over to take the test?
Ooh.
Okay, so answer to the first question. It's $150 to take the test. You have to get at least a 70% score.
mhm.
So I believe the test is 60 questions long. So
Yes,
you can miss 18 and still pass. If you fail, you have to wait 14 days
14
before you
days.
can
Yep.
take it again, and it's going to cost you another $150. So study hard,
There's,
my friends. Study
there's
Yeah.
hard.
study motivation right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, here's what I'm wondering. How many people are going to go take that? I mean, people that would consider themselves recreation flyers, but maybe they're in that fuzzy area. Maybe they might want to go and shoot some real estate or something. I wonder how many people are going to take that test. Just kind of as a preemptive, I want to get this just in case I decide to. I'm thinking about I might do that.
You know,
I'm going to.
we are Air Bears officially treats this 107 certification the same way we treated the registration, and that is we highly recommend it, but it is not your membership is not contingent on having that. In other words, it's up to you. We're all volunteers, and if we'll have you as our team member, whether you want to get registered or if you want to get the 107, you can be a member either way. Um,
But one of the things is, and I guess this will be a question that I would have. Let's say you didn't go get your 107, but you were an Air Bear member.
Yes.
and the local police department said, "Hey, we need you here," and you go, and you're flying, and you do that, and it just so happens we're going to say an FAA guy's a jerk. Not saying they are, just saying, what if this guy is a jerk and he decides to, like, I don't know if they can charge you, or I don't actually know what'll happen there.
Right.
Yeah.
But let's say this guy goes after you.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Could
Yeah.
that damage
So
the Air Bears organization?
No, because
yes,
no, it doesn't. If in fact we in our statement about the new policy is that if you decide to go out and help without the certification, then we can't cover you. We're not.
Okay.
You won't be covered
okay,
under the Volunteer Protection Act, and you're pretty much assuming all of the legal risks for doing so.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind that the FAA has said publicly that the only way they're going to be able to enforce these rules is by asking local law enforcement to help them do it. Well, Mike, those are the
Yeah,
guys that
if
just
you're already-
asked to call. They're the guys that called you and asked you to go help.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
why that's why Air Bears is different from any other organization that does this. We only go out and help when we're asked to by the authorities.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because the same people that could possibly say, "Hey, you're breaking the law," are the people that are asking us to come out and break the law.
Right.
Yeah.
Good
So
point.
Yeah. A little bit of a catch-22 there.
right.
Well, and that's just a question that I know people will have. I think I'm going to go ahead and probably do my 107 because I do want to do the aerial video and aerial photography as well.
Yeah, it opens
Just
a lot
so
of doors.
Yeah, it does. And it, because I got a buddy of mine right now that actually wants me to fly some real estate stuff, and I told him no, I can't.
Uh,
I don't feel like, even though I probably could.
after
You're doing the
tomorrow,
right
you
thing.
could. Yeah.
Oh, you're doing the right thing.
you're doing the right
Exactly.
thing.
You don't
Yeah.
want to take the risk.
I just don't want to take the risk, and I would much rather have my 107 and know that I can say yes, I'm doing this legally and correctly. And and once I get that, then I absolutely am going to join the Air Bears and want to be part of that. I know when I talked to you, oh my God, it must have been about a year ago, when we spoke, and I'm kind of getting off on another subject a little bit, but I know you get put on a national database, and when the local authorities, whether it be fire or police or whatever, ask for your services and they call you and you're not available, they're not liable to call you the second time.
Well, actually, what it does is when you're talking about like emergency response and volunteer work, dependability is a high value thing.
Sure.
So if they say, "Oh, Mike, you're the closest guy and you've got the right gear, we could really use you," and you're like, "I'm sorry, I'm not available," that decreases your chances that they may call you again, because like, well, we
Right.
called this one guy and he didn't come out and help us. What are the chances that he's going to do it again?
Yeah.
So there's that, but there's guys that are taking this seriously. Oh my God, I met a guy at Flightfest and he's got one of these like 40-foot RVs, and he's like sectioning it in half, and he's outfitting it with like huge LCD monitors inside, and he's making it a command station
Search and rescue
for
command
when he
station.
goes and
Wow.
helps Air Bears. So there are
Right.
people that are like dead serious about
Well,
doing this.
Sure, but
Yeah,
but again, my problem is that I travel and I never know when.
sure. No, that's
I
and
mean,
it's right.
you know,
We all
it's-
have
it's-
lives. We're all busy.
Yep.
I get it. That's why the strength of Air Bears is in this membership. The more people we have, the better chance that we can get out there and provide the help that's necessary. Because, like, yeah, maybe you're in bed with the flu, but maybe your buddy that's only 5 miles away is available.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
get the word out. We're trying to tell people about it. It's a very simple organization to be a part of. As long as you're 16 years old and you have something that flies and carries a camera, you qualify for membership. You just go to
Right.
airbears.org, you fill out some simple contact info, and you're on the team. It's as simple as that.
Sure. Okay. Well, then I have a suggestion for you then.
Sure.
For maybe your database is maybe people can check in and out to know who's available previous to a crisis.
You, you, you know what they say, great minds think alike. Because we're actually working on that very thing right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
We have our brand new website came out just before Flightfest, and what we have now is member profiles. So you have your own little profile section. You pretty soon will be able to put pictures of what you fly, their individual capabilities, any particular like special skills or certifications that you have. So it's kind of like your volunteer resume. This is what you're bringing to the table. And yes, we're going to be having your availability. Like, hey, I work 9 to 5, so chances of me helping you out Monday through Friday during these times is kind of slim. So yeah, all that important information is going to be there. And when the authorities have a situation, they get to pick and choose the guys. That they
Sweet.
like, oh, we got a fire. Some guy with a FLIR cam would be perfect. Let's see who's available. They use our search engine, see who the guys are out there, and they contact them directly. So that's been working really good so far, and we're
Cool.
going to continue to add more features to our website as we grow, as we continue to do it.
Sure.
Right now, the most important thing is for us to get a little donate button on there because we put the website out and we have no donate button.
Well,
So I'm like,
now that needs to be
"Wait,
fixed.
that's
You need to
kind
talk
of
to your IT
important."
department.
Funding's important.
So I told my guy, Tom, he's brilliant, our new webmaster. We just brought him on a board of directors, so that's awesome. He knows nothing about drones, but we brought him on the board of directors because we felt it was very important to have someone who represents that community. We want somebody on there that knows nothing about drones, because I can sit here and preach to you guys in the choir. You guys know a lot of this stuff, but he asks questions that never jumped into our minds.
That's great.
So he's been a very,
Wow.
very valuable asset to our board of directors, and I'm really glad to have him there. So thanks,
He's
Tom.
a-
You're awesome.
He's a Josh Scott.
Exactly. That's exactly what he is. He's the
Yeah,
Air Bears
perfect.
version of Josh Scott. Yep.
Perfect.
Well, I think that is perfect, and what you need is folks who are laymen who think outside the box, who may not know
Right. Yep.
about the hobby, but who can think outside the box and ask those questions that
Mhm.
we would never consider. So
Yeah.
that's perfect.
So here's a perfect example. He's like, so you give them the T-shirt, right? And so they wear the T-shirt when they go fly, when they go to help. And we're like, yeah. He goes, what if it's laundry day? So right now we're working on Air Bears ID cards. We're going to have those
Oh,
available
nice.
to our membership pretty soon. You'll be able to keep it in your wallet. There'll be a little slot punched in it at the top, so you can wear it around your neck like a lanyard type
That's
thing.
what I was just gonna say, because
Yep.
if you look right here,
Exactly.
yeah, and
Yep, we're working on that right now, guys.
yeah,
Because,
with the little hole in it, so you can put it in there.
Exactly. Yep. That's going to be, you'll have your name on it, and well, actually, you'll be able to write your name on it, and on the back side, you'll get to be able to put your FAA registration number, your 107
Mhm.
number if you have it, your ham call out if you have one.
Mm-hmm.
So some important quick info in case somebody asks some questions. You really say, hey, I'm an Air Bear. Here's my info. Just
Yeah.
out here trying to help you guys.
That's fantastic, man. That's a great idea.
There's another thing that we offer to our entire membership, and that is a FLIR camera.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we this FLIR camera was donated to Air Bears by my mom and dad.
Oh wow, how nice.
So it belongs to the entire membership. So we only have one of them. FLIR cameras are incredibly expensive.
Yep.
And so what we've done is, if an air bear gets called in to help and it's determined that this capability is a necessity for their mission, they just contact us, they give us some details, and we overnight that to them.
Okay.
And then they have to take care of it. They're responsible for, treating it like a little baby, and then getting it back to us when they're done with it. But yeah, we want to help our membership as much as we can. That depends a lot on funding. Batteries are a huge thing. We're trying to figure out a way where we can have batteries. These like Phantom batteries and stuff. They're expensive, man.
Yes, they are.
I
About
mean,
$150 a pop.
yeah, my car battery is way cheaper than what I'm using to fly around my drones with. And so what we're trying to do is trying to figure out a way where we can have like a stockpile of equipment that we can like rent out or make available to our membership in a short amount of time to give them more capability. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we're working on behind the scenes, and we hope to have available to you guys pretty soon. But right now, that, like I said, it all depends on our funding. We don't have an official sponsor yet, so when that happens,
I'm surprised at that, to be honest with you.
I am too. I figured like GoPro would be, you guys are awesome, and let us, because we're using lots of GoPro cameras.
Oh yeah.
We're like, that's a good camera, So, GoPro's benefiting from what Air Bears has done. How about helping us out, But we're still small. A lot of people think, getting back to the whole hate mail thing, a lot of people think that Air Bears is a lot bigger than we are, and that we have some influence on the legislative process.
Oh,
like,
no.
why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you lobby Congress? Why didn't you do this, that, and the other? I'm like, 'cause I work full time, and so does the other 5 guys that are running Air Bears. Nobody's getting paid here, so we're doing the best we can, my friend. I'm sorry that this is happening, but it's beyond our control.
Oh, no.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, you don't have a lobbying office in Washington,
No.
D.C. that
We,
is blocks away
unfortunately,
from Capitol Hill.
Yeah, we are not the AMA, not yet.
Not
But
yet.
Not yet.
so
Uh,
yeah.
Okay, so this has been fantastic, guys. You guys have brought, I think, a lot of information to the table. It's been really informative for me.
Definitely for me. You guys were like the two perfect guests to talk about this. Irby, from the insurance side of things, that's fascinating. That's something I wouldn't have really thought about, but you brought that to the table, and that was awesome.
And the Civil Air Patrol.
Right.
Yes, and the Civil Air.
Well, and I didn't even get a chance to touch on that a lot, but it's before we started with the podcast, it's what I was talking about in regards to, I think, Civil Air Patrol from kind of a national perspective. They're looking at drones and capabilities in terms of the emergency services aspect of the organization. But also, as Scott alluded to and what we talked about as well, it tends to flow. You have some ideas come from national headquarters, but also a lot of ideas that come from the wing slash group slash squadron size, ideas that kind of bubble their way up to national as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years you see CAP kind of adopting that capability in its search and rescue. And to speak on, Mike, what you were talking about in terms of availability, I was my first go round through CAP. I was ground search and rescue certified, so I would get called in the middle of the night to go search for ELTs that are going off because the search and rescue satellite has picked up a signal, and so I'd go out in the middle of the night, traipsing around, going around airports looking for ELTs, and so, but based on, we had a system where we knew which guys were available to go out at what time and things of that nature. So, in terms of size and scope, as Air Bears is growing, and as Scott is alluding to, that capability, they'll know when guys are available and at what times. I
Mm-hmm.
think is awesome. But I think also just that link with the community, because CAP, we don't do search and rescue or emergency services alone. We don't do it in a vacuum. It's usually done with local law enforcement, fire departments, things of that nature in conjunction. There are some searches that are strictly, CAP. We get tasked by the Air Force to do, but a lot of what we do is community based, and so we work hand in hand with the community. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. I was really excited to do it, and hopefully I get a chance to do it again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the the CAP and Air Bears, that's a marriage made in heaven, really, because basically Air Bears is doing the same thing that CAP does, except our planes are smaller, and we all know that size doesn't matter. So we should totally just work together on this. I think it would be great.
Well, I think this is something that could start to be, I mean, this could really start something then. I think maybe you and Irby should get together a little bit and maybe talk to, whoever's up the chain and try to get some of this done.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing that here locally, but the more people we have pushing for us, like nationally, the more chances that this could actually become a thing.
Yeah, I tell you,
That
our
would be
national
awesome.
commander is Jim Vasquez, and he's out of Maxwell Air Force Base down in Alabama. Like I said, I know it's something that they're looking at nationally, um, and a lot of that is going to come with um, being able to kind of show off what the technology can do. Once they see what the technology can do, I think you look at a greater adoption, and what Scott is seeing locally with fire departments and sheriff's departments, you'll see on a larger level, a larger scale. And I think when we get to the point to where CAP is involved to a greater extent of using small unmanned aerial systems, you'll probably even see the FAA looking maybe kind of, huh, having to look at it a little differently as well. And I think even getting them more involved, your local FAA office or whatever, getting them involved and showing them, hey, this is what the community actually can do, and this is where we need FAA your help in order to come around to help us, achieve, the goals of at least being great ambassadors for the hobby.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something you said just a minute ago about search and rescue being only one aspect of the services that you provide.
Hmm.
You're absolutely right. We've discovered this just in the past year alone. When I started Air Bears, I called it Search and Rescue. That's what our
Hmm.
T-shirts say right now. But we're actually in the process of rebranding that. If you look at our website right now, it doesn't say Search and Rescue. It says UAV Assistance. We wanted to broaden our message to let the people who are interested in our services to let them know that we're not just search and rescue. We'll help you any way we can with what we have. So as a little incentive to people to sign up, we've only got a few more of these shirts that say search and rescue on them. And when they're all gone, that's the message is going to change. So like if you have a shirt that says search and rescue, it's kind of cool because like you're the guy that knew the band before they were cool.
Well, you better put a large back, Scott.
Say one for you, Mike. You got it, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Well, hey, man, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you guys and speak with your listeners to help it get our message out because, like I said, it's all about our membership. We'd be nothing without the help and support and the enthusiastic support of the hobbyists, the model building community, and from guys like you that really care and want to help. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot for having me on.
Well,
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 thank
we
you.
appreciate you coming on, man. I mean, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it just hadn't worked out. But finally, we were able to get this thing worked out. So I want to, just thank both of you guys for coming on. And of course, Pat, I always thank you, buddy, because, we really missed Joel tonight, by the way, and he wanted me to tell you guys hi. And he's sorry that he missed it, but he had to go to Orlando soccer game, and apparently they won, so he's happy. And You know.
Well, hey, you know what? I'm okay with doing this again, my friend. This is a good time.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
Having these
we
type of things is great because you guys get it. It's not like I'm having to talk to a public official or a city council where I have to say, this is a quadcopter. This is how it works. We can skip all that and get to the real meat and potatoes of what we're doing, and
yeah.
and this is a great forum for that.
Well, I tell you, I've learned so much, and I hope our listeners have as well. And by the way, I want to thank all the listeners for listening. And keep a lookout for the show notes because we're going to post in, of course, the Air Bears website and all that. We may even put the Civil Air Patrol website up there as well, so that people that don't know a lot about it can go out and take a look at it for you, Herbie.
Cool.
There is a video that we talked about before the podcast that I'm probably going to link on there as well. That I know Ryan actually linked it, and that's the one I was telling you about with the kid flying the quad and the CGI thing and hit the helicopter. It's
Oh, I just
actually
saw
out on
that
the-
today. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Wow.
And he's like, this is why the FAA is scared. Thank you, BBC. And he's got a link to the video. And everybody needs to go out and take a look at this thing. Yeah, it's like, kind of long, but you only need to look at like the first 30 to 45 seconds of it to see just how terrible the media is putting
The portraying,
unmanned aerial systems.
Yeah. portraying hobby aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, just how bad a light they're putting them in, and it's terrible. And we need to squash, all that bad with some good, and that's part of what I wanted to do this for.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you very much, and we're gonna sign off. And everybody have a great night and blue skies. I think is what Joel says, but whatever. Anyway, guys, have a great night.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.